The Aprilia RS660 is arguably one of the best mid-range sport bikes on the market. Weighing in with 100 brake horsepower and 67 Newton meters of torque, it delivers a serious punch. It's low, aggressive, yet undeniably elegant. Comfortable on the road, yet razor sharp on the track. But for me, this isn't just a bike. It's an opportunity to bring something back to its true, amazing nature.
So before we get started, we're going to call this the money board. Now on this, we're going to keep documented the cost of absolutely everything, from the cost of the bike to the individual parts, fees, shipping, delivery. You get the gist of what we're going to do with this. And in that way, you can see as a whole how much this project has cost from start to finish. So I'll grab my phone. So our first cost of everything was the Aprilia itself. Now I paid $2,950 plus the fees and everything else that Copart slap on top was a total of, so if we have the bike, that cost me £3,484.80. Now, as much as I've not gone on and ordered loads of parts of the bike yet, there's a couple of parts I have ordered already just because they've come up very rarely from what I've seen on eBay listings, and I wasn't prepared to pay main dealer price, and you'll see why in a moment. So first thing that we got ordered was the front right start button switch. So we'll call this right switch, and that cost a total of £45. On top of that, we've got the front brake setups. This is the master cylinder, the reservoir, the banjo, the bolts, everything that goes on there to enable me to reconnect that front cylinder was £118. We then got the rear tail light, because again, they don't come up very often. If you buy them from main dealer, they're stupid money. So the rear light was £63.99. Now, I'm not going to add all of these up now because there's no point in doing that until we get to the end of the project so you can see the cost of everything. But on top of that, the last couple of bits that we've ordered was the last thing we ordered is rear bobbins, just to go on the back of the bike for the paddock stand, because currently I've got to use one of the flat bottoms. They were £8.03. So far, that is everything that I've spent on the bike. Now, the retail value of this bike, given its low mileage, is around £8,500 to £9,000. We're gonna have to take 15% off of that. So if we say conservatively 8 grand and we take off 1,200, we'll be sat somewhere around the £6,800 mark. So that is our absolute max that we can go to, and we're already pretty tight on it. We've still got to get fairings, we've got to get panels, headlights. There's so much we've got to get for this bike. So what we've got as well is 2 bins here. We're gonna have this as good bin and bad bin. Obviously the good bin, for any half chance there's parts that we can keep and that we're going to reuse, they're going to go in the good bin, and obviously the bits that are battered, they're going in the bad bin. So we'll move the bike round, I'll change you over there, and then, yeah, let's get cracking.
Now straight away, we like to put some of the loose items away where they need to go. So the tank cover was damaged during the accident, so that's gone into the bad bin. Now the seat, thankfully, wasn't damaged whatsoever, not a scratch on it, so that can go straight into the good bin. I wanted to start by removing the fuel tank just to make the bike a little bit lighter, as well as the fact that it's damaged and I didn't really want fuel leaking everywhere. So a simple bolt at the back and then a couple of small bolts at the front of the key cover just to remove that, which thankfully was also okay, so that can go into the good bin. Now we've removed that, we put the bolts back in place just to make sure we don't lose them, because the last thing you want is missing bolts when it comes to doing the rebuild. Now that gave us access to the 2 bolts which holds the fuel tank in place. So as you can see there on one side of the key switch, we can turn that bolt over and take it out, and turn the other one over and take that out as well. The fuel line plug was nice and simple to remove, had a little push clip, pull it out, you can see there's still a little bit of fuel in there. Now there was a bucket on the floor, which I drained any excess into, just to make sure it doesn't cause a mess everywhere. Now once that was done, all we had to do is disconnect the electric plug, and that is for the pump, which pumps the fuel, of course, from the tank into the fuel lines to get the bike started.
So before we started moving the bike around, I wanted to get this fuel tank off, and there's a good reason for it. There is a bucket below me before you start freaking. Yeah, fuel's not supposed to come out the side of the fuel tank, so there is a massive split in the side of this. Whether it can be repaired or not, I'll be honest, I don't think it can, because I don't think this is a metal tank. There's parts of it that are metal, but a lot of this up here, it feels very hollow, like it's just a normal plastic tank. So I think unfortunately we're gonna need to get another tank. I don't think there's any way around that. So yeah, that's why I'm taking this off before we start moving things around.
So now the fuel tank's removed, it makes the bike a heck of a lot lighter. So you can remove that first paddock stand at the front and the paddock stand at the rear, and trust me, Less weight is so much easier when it comes to moving a bike. And when you can see that I've only got one handlebar to work with, it makes my life that much easier. So we get the bike back up on the stand, quick shake just to make sure it's all good and solid and not going everywhere, and then we're back to the front of the bike. Now you can see here I learned very quickly that there's absolutely no way I'm going to be undoing this part of the bar without any sort of support. So I started off with the loose parts, and obviously started with the brake line first because that was quite loose. Removed the brake line and thankfully there's no damage to it whatsoever. And then again, we removed the throttle, and then at that point we was able to remove half of the starter switch, which then enabled me to take the bar away from the snapped triple clamp at the top, and we can start moving our way over to the bench to get this off. Now, if this doesn't go to show how tight this was, I really don't know what does. That took a heck of a lot of effort just to try and get that bolt off. With a mixture of red Loctite and a high amount of torque to keep that bar tight to the triple clamp, it was near on impossible to do it if I didn't have that vice. Now, once we got the brake set up out, we was then able to remove the lever itself because there was nothing wrong with the lever. And hey, what's the point in getting rid of parts that's still good to go? That can go in a bin.
Now that was a bit difficult to get off, I can't lie. A lot of the bolts were really, really tight. You got to think there's a heck of a lot of Loctite on there, and they're slightly twisted and bent where it's been crashed. It weren't exactly the easiest thing to get off. Now, really unfortunately, the throttle here it works, but it's all cracked and it's damaged. So we're gonna have to get another one of these. But there's gonna be a lot of parts we're gonna need to get for this bike, but it will be what it will be. So it's not the end of the world. Now, these cables, by the looks of it, go just down here, sort of past this little headstock part. So I'm hoping once we get the dash, the light bracket holder and the headlights off, we should be able to remove all of this entirely. Thankfully, the brake line is actually okay. So I've got the bolt and the crush washers for the brakes. That's gonna go into the good box. And then yeah, we'll just crack on with this and see how it goes.
Now, working our way around the front of the bike, remove this front section here, and this carbon part just covers all of these electrical connections behind. Now, this usually sits behind the front screen, so it's not something you typically see. Now, I'll go on to explain this in a minute, but the reason we're having to cut all of this here is because the bolt on the inside was slightly stripped. So a little bit of a hacksaw, bending the end bolt, it then enabled me to be able to pull that section off. Now, the grips actually weren't too bad. You pulled it from the back, it created an air pocket and just lets you pop it off.
That was genuinely ridiculous to get off. Again, Loctite, red Loctite, if you've ever used it, you know how hard it is to undo stuff. Crossed with the fact that for some reason, the end of my 6mm Allen key's got like a tapered part. So it wasn't actually all the way in there and it was slipping and ruining the edge of the bolt basically. So either way, we cut it through, got it off. Happy days. I'm gonna slide this section off here, and I guess we're gonna have to take the triple clamp off in order to get this off, because currently, I don't think this is gonna allow us to keep that tight. You see how hard it was for me to take off the other bar earlier. So I think we'll get the triple clamp off, we'll take these parts off, and then yeah, see how we go.
Now, removing the triple clamp in itself isn't too bad. You have a central bolt, 24mm, which you just undo, and now that takes off that section. Once you've loosened these two Allen bolts at the side, it allows you to take it off of the forks themselves and allows you to pop it off just like that. Now, the clutch cable does route behind the back of this triple clamp, so you have to undo this little bracket, almost like a hook, which holds it in place. It's really important you do that because you don't want the clutch cable going all over the place. Then we can pull off the electrical connection, pull off the clutch lever, and then we've got our triple clamp.
So that's the triple clamp off. That was actually a bit of a pig to get off, if I'm being perfectly honest. Off camera, you can't see it now, but I've got a headstock stand. Now, for some reason, considering this is a race bike, this has thrown me off a little bit, or it's supposed to be the race spec, track spec, whatever you want to call it. So I want to grab my seat quickly. Yeah, let's start that again. So these bikes are race spec, track spec, whatever you want to call it. They're more suited to track than they are the road, simple as that. And one thing that a lot of people on track will do, especially when it comes to tyre warmers or maintenance, or if you've got to do anything to the forks or take forks off, is to use like a headstock stand. So what you do is there's a little hole at the bottom that goes straight through the centre stem of the bike. So if you imagine you're sat on the bike, the central stem which I had to crack off earlier, this one, essentially that is hollow the whole way down. And what happens is at the bottom you can put a headstock stand, it lifts the bike from that point. For some reason, Aprilia run their brake line and the ABS sensor through a plastic sheet that covers that hole. And it seems a bit sort of counterintuitive really, because you would have thought they'd have that clear so you can have something fitted there. And like I was just doing then, you don't really want to have any sort of force on the wheel pushing the weight upwards when you're taking the triple clamp off, because things can then start to go out of line. So now we've got that off, the plan is, even though, yes, this bit here is snapped and the bottom bit is okay, I'd still rather have these 2 points here clamped down, so at least it's keeping it sort of, imagine limping, you got sort of 50% you can go. So yeah, that didn't make no sense, but you kind of get the picture. So we're going to do the same thing again. I'm going to clamp this up in the vise, get this bar out, because this bar is actually fine to use.
Now a quick swig of the good stuff and we're back at it again. So this time we've got the other bar straight into the vise and turn it around. And you can tell just by my facial expression there, this was not an easy task getting this bolt out.
Right, so now that's off. Like I say, we're not going to be reusing this part in its entirety, but just for the time being, while we're waiting for new parts to turn up, obviously this is one we've still got to order. I'm going to put this back on just so it gives it that sort of 50% support, so at least it's not putting all the weight upwards, it's sort of strengthening itself between the one fork and the center, so it can sort of help the other fork, if that makes any sort of sense. So yeah, this bar is absolutely fine, same as the other one. So you'll find a lot of listings now, these sort of come on their own. You buy the bars separately. Sometimes you'll find these where it comes complete, where you've got both bars and the top yoke, but I've seen a lot of them without. So I'm gonna keep these just in case, and it also seems daft to get rid of them when there's literally nothing wrong with them. So good bin, in between bin, but I'm gonna mount this back on the bike anyway.
Now without being too heavy-handed, a couple of little taps with a mallet just to get it in place, and then we can put the center bolt back in there again just to keep it nice and tight.
So with that done, I think the next thing we're going to focus on is trying to get this front whole section off, because the headlights are smashed to pieces, fairings are gone, the bracket stays gone. So I want to try and get all of this off and out. It also enables us to get access to everything behind here, which we're going to need to reroute the new switch cable, all the electrics that have got to go into this area. So having said that, the best thing to do now, I think, is just crack on with this bit. We're going to take these headlights out. Now these ordinarily shouldn't be too bad, very similar to most other bikes you'll work on. The sort of front nose fairing clicks, bolts or screws into the headlight setup. The headlight setup then screws into the headlight bracket stay, and then that's how it holds everything together at the front, and then all the rest of the bike bolts from there. So we're going to take this off and bring it out this way, and then this is going to get down to sort of bare bones as it looks. So yeah, shouldn't be too bad, fingers crossed. So yeah, let's get it.
Now removing the front section all in all wasn't too difficult. Now you have the inner side fairings which sit just behind the front nose cone, which is just a few little 4mm bolts and a couple of crosshead screws that hold it in. Once we get those out of the way, we then gain access to the front screws, which of course hold the nose into the fairing and also hold the nose into the frame of the bike.
Right, that's the front section off. So we've got sort of half of the front fairing. This whole headlight bracket stay is smashed to pieces, so we're definitely going to need a new one of these, and thankfully it's only a plastic part. So I believe these come in 2 halves as well. This half is absolutely fine, this half is, yeah, kaput. So yeah, we'll have to get a new one for there, but it's just a couple of screws that holds that in half. We're slowly getting there. Now we're going to have to salvage a lot of these parts, so mainly the bolts, the connectors, the screws, the brackets, you know, the basic stuff that's on here. So we're going to keep this in the good bin, even though most of it's going to go, just so we've got a reference for when we come back to get the new parts, what's going to go where, because obviously we're going to get aftermarket headlights and all that sort of stuff. So this is going to drop in the good bin for now, and then we'll start cracking on with this front end. That is the easiest screen I've ever taken out. These bits at the top don't really do anything, it just holds these washers in place. And they just pop out. So much easier. The Yamaha, nightmare. You had 2 of them that screwed in and clamped, one that had to go in at an angle like that. Ah, well done Aprilia.
So removing these bolts at the front I thought was going to be the way that we get this front section off. However, I learned very quickly that a lot more parts have to come off to enable access to it.
Learning as we're going, so to take this front end off, we've literally got to get both side fairings off. So yeah, before we can get this front end off, we've got to take all of these bits off here. I would just snap them off ordinarily, but I'd quite like to do it bolt by bolt, just so then I know exactly, as a reference point, where things go. The under plastics all look okay, which is good. So yeah, we'll just have to see how we go when it comes to getting these side bits off. So yeah, let's get on with that.
So the first thing to do is to remove the crash bung. Now the crash bung itself was bent upwards and it had in fact twisted the frame underneath. Now the frame itself just bolts into the bike, it's not a structural part, and unfortunately we couldn't reuse it, so that had to go in the scrap bin. We then work our way down to removing this inner plastic panel, which bolts into the radiator and the front plastic trim. Now on this panel we have the voltage regulator, so we had to remove that as well. Now the plastic panel that we had that bolted to unfortunately was damaged beyond repair and had to go in the bin. And then on the other side of the bike, it's the exact same story again. Remove the crash bung, remove any plastic trim bolts, remove any parts that are connected to that front nose, and then we can remove that section of the bike. Now it's very clustered behind here. We have all the electrical connections that we expected. So now we're simply removing the connection for the start button switch and then removing this connection for the throttle cable.
Oh, now this is looking less and less like a bike as time goes on. We are at the sort of finishing stages of stripping this down now, which feels like it's taken me forever to do. So the last thing we've got to do is take this rear tail section off. Now, unfortunately, there has been a few more bits on here that have been damaged that I didn't anticipate. So like for earlier, for example, the throttle tube, I thought that was absolutely fine. It's got a crack on the inside, which you couldn't see until you take it off. So there's little things like that. When it comes to the front section, the part that mounts to the radiator, that itself holds the front sort of fairing in on the right-hand side. That's split on this side. Same as the front of the head, that's also split on this side as well. Now that part does have the frame stamp on it, but it's not a stamp, it's like a plated sticker. So I'll have to replace that onto the new one, get a couple of under fairings, and then good to go. So yeah, the last bit to get off now, all of this carbon fiber bit is good, which I'm happy about. So we're gonna have to remove the number plate holder under here, take this mounted section off, which is for the rear cowl, take off these side fillets, and then that is pretty much us stripped down in its entirety. We'll get down to that, and then I'll show you sort of a bit closer up as to what we've done, and then yeah, see how we get on. See how we get on. Say it again.
Yeah, sorry, not sorry. It's going to take me a while to stop doing that. Anyway, back to the bike. Now, the rear cowl section is simply 2 bolts that holds that on. So a bolt at the front, a bolt at the back, and the key slot is underneath that. So it doesn't actually get connected into that part. Now, the left-hand side was only 2 bolts because the rest of them had snapped away. The bolts, however, were still good, so they went back into the frame. Same process on the right-hand side with a couple of extra bolts to remove, and then that's both fillets done. Now, the rear light is simply 2 bolts, one either side. It would ordinarily be more, but of course that's all snapped away as well. Then we just undo the plug, pull it through the frame, and that's the rear light removed. We then work on removing the tail section, which is a number plate holder, the bracket, and the indicator lights. Now the electrical connections are all going to be completely redone because in future we're going to be getting a custom quick flip tail tidy mount. Now for the time being, we're just going to disconnect these and make sure none of the cable's short against the frame. That is the tear down complete. So everything that is damaged and needs replacing on this bike has now been stripped off. And I mean, visually there's not that much left to it. It's quite weird seeing it like this. It's also quite daunting knowing that I've taken this on and we've got to get this back to a pretty good standard. Been very lucky. I've had a look at loads of different bits on the frame. There's nothing wrong with any parts of the frame. There's nothing damaged on any of the engine block parts. There's nothing damaged on the rads. The coolant, the oil, everything is top. These bits down here, the carbon pans, I'm probably going to sell these because I can salvage them. Same with this, same with some of the carbon parts we've taken off. I'm going to sort of remove all the carbon parts except for the frame covers because I think they look quite nice and they should blend in nicely with the fairing design that I'm thinking of. So yeah, I'm not going to go too much into the fairing design because I want to kind of keep that quiet. So I think for now what I'm going to do, I've got some sort of mixture of bits and pieces up there from Rocket Off, so I'm going to just clean the bike up a little bit. And yeah, that'll probably be it for now. And then I'll get you some static shots in a moment, show you how it looks now. And yeah, this is great fun. Hopefully next week I've got somebody who's going to be able to give me a hand with the recording side of stuff, so I won't need to keep moving the camera. They'll be able to move it around for me and I'll just be able to carry on with my voiceovers and make things a little bit easier and more pleasurable for you guys to watch as well. Good things take time, and with that I'm going to love you and leave you. Get it back over there so it's out of the way, and then go through the big list of parts here which I need to get, and get a long list of bits and pieces that we're going to need, and that should be that. Thank you guys very much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.